Hey guys, it's Madison. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who watched my last video because I did not expect that many people to watch it. So you are all amazing. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing, please. Um, I have some really special guests this week. I love them so much and I can't wait for you to see. So without further ado, let's go. Hi everybody, thank you for sitting down to talk with me.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just gonna let everyone go around and introduce themselves.
Okay, I guess I'll start. My name is Sophia Chu. I'm 17 and I'm from the Seattle, Washington area. I do a lot of self-portraits and photography and other kinds of digital art, as well as I make video content. So you can find me at Shots by Sophia on all platforms.
Hi, my name is Julia. I am also known by Cassberrie on all my social media. And so I'm 22. I live around on the West Coast and I primarily do digital art. And yeah, that's kind of it. I'm not as talented, multi-talented as Sophia, but I do a lot of digital art, sometimes traditional artwork, and I like to, design things.
She does really good digital art, so don't let her minimize the talent. It's really pretty. So
Yeah, but yesterday I was just scrolling through Sophia's gallery and I was like, oh damn, she's really good.
That's exactly
okay,
how I
I've done
feel
that
about
too.
you. Oh my goodness.
I know, but I mean, you've accomplished a lot, so it's kind of intimidating sometimes. But yeah, so following that, I just wanted to ask, how did each of you get into your respective art forms?
I kind of Well, of course, I started taking pictures a few years ago, but I remember just like sitting on my phone, scrolling through my feed as I normally do. And this was at a time where I had begun to like post a lot of my photos, and I also followed a lot of other photographers. And I was kind of looking at their different styles because, there are people taking family portraits or people doing like creative portraits or more like editorial stuff for magazines. And all of that was like super interesting. But it was never really like I never really felt like I had a set style that I wanted to like pursue or one that actually brought me joy and one that was different every time I would edit or every time I would shoot. So I started to kind of like merge whatever I really liked that week with my pictures, whether that was like songs or books or movies or whatever. And it kind of merged into this sort of like Photoshop art type thing, and I would look up tutorials on how to like do different like fantasy edits, and then that kind of started in August-ish and now we're here. So yeah.
It went really fast.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What about you, Julia?
Yeah, so I was always one of those kids where like you're always like doodling in the background, like your doodles aren't any good when you're like, 6 years old, but my parents didn't tell me to stop, so I kept doing it. Yeah, and then so like as time went on, I kind of I think I started getting more aware of like the bookish community on Instagram, etc., and Tumblr. So once I started like getting onto social media, that's how I realized like, oh, there's so many different artists out here and they're all trying all these like different ways of doing digital artwork. And so I kind of wanted to like learn from them, get inspired by them, also start creating digital work. And then yeah, that brought me eventually to where I am now. Like after like finding a nice way to kind of combine like all the books that I love reading while also knowing that there's a fandom for it, and then just getting to see other people's creations. And so definitely quarantine has been a fun time for me in that I get to spend more time reading and drawing. And so yeah, because you're stuck inside all day. And I think yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Did you ever get to start out doing like, because you mentioned you do traditional art as well, did you start off doing like any particular medium that beforehand? Because I know you primarily do digital now, but like did you ever take art classes or do little things like that in school growing up?
Yeah, so I think I was always signed up for like the art classes they had in school, where they kind of just have you do whatever you want. So that was fun. And then so primarily I always like doing like graphite, a lot of ink work. sometimes I try to get into painting, but I found that it was a little too messy and chaotic, and I always got really annoyed whenever I couldn't remix that same color I wanted before. Whereas now I could just use the eyedropper tool on Procreate, and that's all I need. So yeah, I think eventually when I did make the jump over to digital, I was like, wow, this is so much more convenient.
Yeah, well, and you have a very unique color scheme as well. That well,
You
I
mean
mean,
that I don't
I
use
say
color?
it's unique. Like it's like I know some people would like, oh, it's only 3 colors, but it works so well. It works really well on the like every time I'm scrolling through Instagram, like under the Shadow and Bone tag, and like I can immediately tell when it's your work.
Yes, it's a very it's very stylized, let's say that. Yes.
It is in the best way possible. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
now, Sophia, I know you've done some work for UNICEF as well. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, so around March of 2020, the week that I got off of school, when the pandemic, I guess, was starting its first climb. I live in Washington State, and in Washington State, I think was like the first few US coronavirus cases. So my school was out pretty early. I started this Instagram account called COVID-19 Photos for Teens, and it's basically an online community for teenage photographers just to kind of connect, and we would hold weekly themes and you could get your photos featured, and it was just basically for teenagers to have a creative outlet through photography, which I guess was something I needed. So I guess having other people around the world connect through the pandemic, it's kind of a weird thing to connect about, but connecting through a pandemic. And then our story was picked up by Voices of Youth, which is their, I guess, youth area for UNICEF, and they had me write an article about what it was like experiencing the pandemic as a teenager and experiencing the pandemic through a creative side, and I guess having photography as a creative outlet. And then they had me write about some more like personal experiences, whether that was my experience with racism or my experience with representation. And then that got republished by UNICEF and then translated into other languages, which is really cool. And then they had me do even more content for, this is earlier, this not early, this is later on. They had me do some more content for discrimination, and we were separated into groups, and my group was about LGBTQ allyship and what it was meant, what it was like to be an ally. And I did work on that, and it was like a photo piece. And I myself, I don't really like writing that much, which is kind of funny because I've had to do a lot of writing in the last year, but having the photo pieces along with the written pieces was super, super fun. And then I more recently did a video on vaccines for UNICEF, which is now on their reels on Instagram. So that's kind of the journey from March of last year to this year.
Well, I'm glad that you did. That's, I mean, it probably helped a lot of people. I know it seems small sometimes. You're like, I'm just taking pictures, or it's not that big of a deal. But I think especially in a time where everyone was so isolated and contained, it really helped to know that there were people out there that were going through the same things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's really cool, and I'm glad that you got the opportunity to do that. Hopefully you get more in the future. Okay, so moving on to Shadow and Bone specifically, because I know that sort of both of you have work that is centered in that universe. What attracted you to Shadow and Bone?
For me, I was getting into Shadow and Bone, like, I think just as it was coming out. I started reading Shadow and Bone when other people were reading Six of Crows, because Six of Crows was getting hyped up. So then Shadow and Bone was as well. I think it was 2015. Okay, honestly, my timelines could be entirely wrong. I don't remember. It was a long time ago after the pandemic, and all my timelines are messed up. So yeah, I think what drew me to Shadow and Bone was the fact that it was set in like a fantasy Russia, which is something that I found kind of rare, because given that a lot of YA at the time was either dystopian or it was set in like a very Western European style setting. And so I thought that was very interesting, and I wanted to kind of get a feel for like what this other type of fantasy world could look like. And then from there on, I found I kind of really enjoyed the setting, and then I continued on to Six of Crows, really enjoyed that, got involved with the fandom, and I stayed here. I mean, I can also say that like a lot of it was driven by the fact that I thought Dark Lena was a lot of fun. So maybe, okay, yeah.
No shame in that.
There's
No, you do have a
no
lot of
secret.
really
If you look
great
at my gallery, you know.
Oh man. So in 2015, I was like in sixth grade maybe. So I had different interests from at that time, but I got into Grishaverse, I want to say November, maybe December. So pretty recently. I read the Grishaverse out of order because I put out a story box question on my Instagram stories and I said, give me book recommendations that you think I'll love, because I'm getting back into reading this year. And a lot of people were like, Sophia, if you like morally gray hot guys, you need to read the Grishaverse novel. And I was like, my audience knows me so well, almost too well. It's a little bit scary sometimes, but they're like, Sophia, Cassberrie, I can feel your hyperfixation from here. Like you need to read Six of Crows and the Shadow and Bone books. So I ended up reading Six of Crows first, and I loved it to death. I read Crooked Kingdom maybe a few hours after I finished the first book, and then I read Shadow and Bone after that, and then King of Scars, Rule of Wolves. But that was pretty much how it started.
Okay, so you went back and you read Shadow and like the original 3, and like after you finished the whole second series.
Yeah.
That's not too bad though. I mean, it's kind of, at least you can still connect the dots pretty easily. It's just kind of like, oh, cool. There's a big backstory that I didn't know about. So
I ended up skimming the Six of Crows duology after, just so I could kind of pick up on the context of when it took place and who the characters were. So that kind of helped too.
Yeah, like who's this Zoya person everyone keeps talking about?
No, what makes her so special?
now we know. I guess like I know the answers, but I'm still gonna ask. So, what is your favorite Grishaverse character? I know it's hard to pick between, like, I can't really pick any of the crows because I feel like it's kind of together, but it's hard. But
that's kind of how I feel too. I did this Grishaverse like sorting thing. You can like look it up on Google, like Grishaverse character sort, and it will like, you'll pick between the different characters and it will list at the end, or it will rank your characters in order from like how much you like them to like how much you didn't like them.
I need to do
And
that.
at the top of mine, because I'm indecisive, I couldn't choose. At the top of mine, it was Zoya, then Nikolai, then Kaz, then the Darkling, and then Nina, and a bunch of other people. It's funny, Mal wasn't even an option on the quiz thing, which I thought was really funny. But yeah, I would say top 3 would probably be Zoya, Nikolai, and probably Nina.
I think for me, it's I always love like morally gray characters, especially ones who are kind of like low-key down to destroy the world. I just think it's a lot of fun. And you know, like since you can't do it IRL, you might as well live vicariously through your books, right? So I think I would put probably both, okay, the Darkling on the top because I think he's a lot of fun. Also Zoya would be number 2 because I love a queen. We all stand a queen. And I think number 3, honestly speaking, probably Inej, because I just always felt so much emotion whenever I was reading her scenes in Six of Crows, the way she's so quietly powerful and how she always just like perseveres through everything. It just like, wow, it made me like that, what was it, the chimney scene where her like shoes were burning off. I was like, oh my God, I was screaming. I thought it was too good. So yes, Inej, my queen. And then when I saw Amita Suman, I was like, oh my God, she's so good.
Those are the ones you like the best. Do you relate to those same ones in particular, or is there one that you're like, okay, this one's actually more me than, because I know that happens too sometimes.
In that like she's always just tired and cranky all the time. I'm just like, yeah, that's the news though. Like, what do you mean I have to lead the second army against the Darkling now? Like, oh my God. Like, yeah, sure, yeah.
What about you, Sophia?
I don't really know. It's crazy to think that like as I was reading Six of Crows, I was like, these kids are my age. Like I feel so boring compared to them. Like they're out here killing people for the people they love, and I can't like get through my geometry homework, and it's just it's a very, very distinct difference. But I don't know. I feel like I could really connect to Alina's relationship with Mal because I don't know. I feel a lot of emotions for my friends, and that in the sense of like missing them, like whether they like moved away or we lost touch, I felt myself really connecting to that, especially in the first book.
I still think that's funny that Mal wasn't an option on the. It's like they need to change that now that Archie's done the show, because he was great.
Mm-hmm.
Come back to your art too, but what do you feel is the most challenging thing about being an artist and the most rewarding thing? Because it's not all one or the other, especially since you're on a public media platform.
I would say the most difficult thing is probably like this invisible pressure to make something new or make something unique. Because I know with my style of content that I make, there's not a ton of people making things like it, in the sense that like there's not a lot of, I guess, like book related or like Shadow and Bone related, like realism type art, mixing photography with Photoshop kind of thing out there. So I don't know, it's just a little bit of pressure to make something realistic, make something that's accurate, but also reflects me as well as the books and as well as the plot of the show, and something that people will like as well, because I know I've made photos that I personally think were my favorites, but then they're probably the worst doing ones on my feed. So yeah, there's that. And I would say the most rewarding part is, I guess, the not like constructive criticism, but like people will always be messaging me suggestions or things that they really, really liked about my recent pieces. And then I can take that and use it for my future work, which is super helpful and just tells me what I need to do more often. And I think that is really rewarding.
For me, I think I definitely agree with what you're saying when there's like this invisible pressure to always want to do something new, do something better, for instance. And so whenever I'm working on composition ideas, I'm always just kind of like thinking about it, trying to see like, oh, is this like too flat looking? Is this too similar to a pose I already created? And then the execution style, because like as the creator, you know all the mistakes that you're making. So like you're kind of like fixated on all of these things that can end up wasting a lot of time, or maybe like your own vision doesn't line up with what you're trying to create. So that can be kind of challenging in that sense. And then on the other hand, though, when you're all done and then you post it online, just like it doesn't matter like how few people are saying it, but if anyone's just there to say like, hi, like I really like this, or like I, really like your interpretation, or in particular reference to when I did the drawing of Alina in Hanfu, I thought that like I got a lot of people saying like they really enjoyed seeing this particular interpretation of seeing her connected to her culture, and just knowing that like there's people out there who like my work, who maybe like feel something when they look at it, like that just makes it all kind of rewarding in the process. That being said, recently I've developed like hand pains from holding my Apple Pencil too hard, so I need to like learn better techniques to deal with that. Yeah, so it's okay. That's a problem for another day.
I was just gonna say, I'm like trying to like crack my knuckles silently under the table because I've been gripping this so it's it's not an Apple Pencil, it's the Wacom pen, but still my hand is like, I don't want to get arthritis.
Legit,
I need to work on that, make some more comfortable grips or something too. Or something that you can support your arm on for a little while. Just be like, okay, it's dying. I need a break. But yeah, I would like to talk about your Alina in Hanfu Julia, because a lot of your art also incorporates either like Chinese fantasy elements or traditional dress elements. And I really, really liked that about your work. So I did. It's part of my background, and tying into that, do either of you feel that your personal heritage and your background as women of color comes into bearing on the work that you create?
I don't really know if I think of it as like a bearing or like a burden, but more like a responsibility. I feel like the audience that I have now isn't something that I expected, but people are willing to hear me talk about like seeing other Asian representation in the media. And I guess that kind of motivates me to keep up those conversations and keep having those kinds of discussions just kind of casually in my work. So I think Shadow and Bone really opened up that kind of opportunity, especially with the casting for Alina being Jessie. So that was definitely very helpful. But yeah, it's a little, it doesn't feel like super heavy, but more kind of just an unconscious thing that I've kind of come into practice doing.
Me, I think that, well, for one, like with the Hanfu piece, it was sometimes it's just nice to like think about some of the own elements of your culture that you can maybe work into your artwork. Like for instance, I grew up on a lot of Chinese historical dramas where they're all like wearing like the red huadian on their foreheads, right? And so when I was drawing my Alina artwork, I was like, so what if I just drew a little thing right here? And then so it was something that was really small to me, but knowing that like I got people in response as being like, oh, I love that you added the huadian. Or for instance, when I saw my Anne cosplay, she did her Alina in Hanfu inspired cosplay, and then she also drew the sun Huadian on there, and she like let me know that she was inspired by it and how it was like a nice touch to like an extra bit of connection to her culture. And so I just find that it's really nice to just try and like add these little elements. For instance, like maybe look at Chinese ink work to see like how they're drawing their lines, you know, how they're finding balance, or just since I do have this heritage, I might as well like play around with it to see how I can like incorporate into something that would make my art style uniquely my own, you know. And definitely that time when I was like making the Hanfu piece, I was just feeling a lot of emotions after like 2020, like all the rise of xenophobia and all that good stuff. So I was just like, you know what, like why don't I just draw this very self-indulgent piece that's just like me appreciating the heritage I was given. So yeah, and I'm glad that it resonated with people.
That was actually the first piece of yours that I saw because I was on Tumblr. I'd seen Mayan's cosplay and I was like, that's pretty cool. I wonder if there's more out there. And in fact, there were, but one of the pieces that ended up because of the tags was your art piece. And I was just like, oh, it's so good. And then, but your caption also was very moving. So I'm glad that I know it can be kind of scary whenever you're putting something so personal out there, but also because of the climate at the time, it was a big deal. I mean, I know it might not have felt like it, but it was a big step to take. And I really appreciate that you were able to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
That being said, we talked a little bit about what representation means to you and what being an artist of color means to you. Can you also tell me if you've had anybody online that has, like, do you still get some people that are tempted to only see your race or your age or your gender before they really consider your work or the fact that you are an individual with your own, unique set of characteristics? Because I know that can also happen. Like, race is a big part of who everybody is because of the culture that we live in, but it can sometimes be, I think, not blown out of proportion, but it can be kind of used to mask other more important things. And I know especially with content creators, sometimes that happens.
Nothing immediately sticks out to me. I think that, there have been some like magazines that people have started that focus on like Asian Americans and Asian work, which I think is really, really cool. Like there's some really good authentic ones out there because I'm like online friends with the people. For instance, like Rice and Spice magazine, they feature some really amazing people. But I've also seen like this one magazine reached out to me through DMs. I don't think I ended up submitting work, but they were about like young POC creators and they wanted to feature some of my photos, but they're like, we have one South Asian person submitting this week and we just need one East Asian person submitting. I was like, oh, like you just need like one more, like you need like that kind of token representation, which kind of sucks because they didn't really see my work before they saw my race. I feel like, well, they probably saw my work before they saw my race, but like the way that they approached it was very much like, hi, we're looking for a person of East Asian descent. Then we like your work, So the order of that, I feel like, kind of threw me off a little bit, which kind of discouraged me from submitting. But knowing that there are other magazines and other places that want to feature my work that are a lot more adamant about recognizing me as a person and my work and the kind of content that I make before that sort of like token representation, I think is really important.
I gotta agree on that because like, oh, the moment you told your story, I was like, nah, man, they did not do that.
Red flag.
But, yeah, I was like, oh man. Just maybe some things just keep it to yourself, I don't know. But yeah, luckily for me, I haven't necessarily encountered a lot of this sort of stuff. I think it's mostly not necessarily what people say to me, but what I end up hearing around the fandom, or people just saying that like, oh, maybe representation doesn't matter, or like, or if you are a person of color, you should be, I don't know, held to a higher standard than some other people are. And so that's something that I kind of understand, like not necessarily like kind of indirectly when working in a fandom space. And so it just kind of like certain conversations just become a little strange, especially when you're talking about like the way certain elements in like the books or the show was depicted, and maybe you kind of disagree with how some people feel, and then they automatically just like, oh, it's because like you're like this, right? It's because you're Chinese, right? I'm just like, yeah, well, yes, that informs my opinion, but also like I'm not in that's not all I am, so I think that's kind of what's made the fandom experience both like interesting in that I get to hear a lot of opinions, but also just like a little in that like I think people automatically default to being like, oh, well, she's a Chinese woman, so that's probably how she feels, right, etc.
It's kind of a fine line to walk for a lot of people. I can understand why there's some difficulties with that, but I did like, at least in the show, how that becomes an issue that has opened up more discussion. I remember when I was talking before in my last video with several of the girls that are all mixed race, they talked about how it's kind of funny how in the show that Alina, is definitely part Shu, but she's also fully Ravkin, and there's a tendency for like whenever people bring up the Shu-ness, that tends to be what they want to fixate on, even though she identifies more as Ravkin. And I think that's sometimes kind of how it happens as well. Like it is a part of who you are, but it's not the only thing that you are as well. I think especially with the content that both of you create, it's important to see that it's very like it's centered on a certain genre, and the people that follow you and people that really appreciate your art are from all sorts of different places and different backgrounds, and you're connecting first and foremost over a love of this world and a love of the ideas that it has rather than just one specific demographic. Okay, so what would you like to see from the show moving forward?
I guess I'll answer this one. I've thought about it a little bit, but going forward, the first thing that comes to mind is Zoya's character arc, because I know there was a lot of controversy surrounding the appearance of racism and sort of Zoya's like digs at Alina being from the orphanage and being like half Shu. So I'm really waiting to see Zoya's character arc and see how they sort of like redeem her character for non-readers. I feel like that's really important because Zoya is a really, really well-liked character in the Grishaverse, and hearing everybody sort of like, I guess, have their love for her sort of like falter when the news that she was going to be a little bit like biased and racist came out, that was a little bit heartbreaking. So I'm waiting to see her character arc. I think that's really important. And also Nikolai, just overall, as well as the twins, like Tolya and Tamar, so excited for them. I know I didn't mention them first, but they're probably at the top of the list for that one. I am so excited for that. I myself am a triplet, and the Shu people tend to be born in multiples, and seeing Tolya and Tamar and their like sibling dynamic, but also having like really, really badass Asian rep was so exciting. I remember reading about them and being like, wow, Tamar is literally my sister. Like, I thought that was super, super cool. So yeah, very excited for them.
Absolutely. I was definitely going to say Tolya and Tamar just because like, I think just Tamar is just so much fun, just swinging her axes around everywhere. And I was just like, oh, she's here. And then I'm just like already like planning out, like thinking about like what her relationship with Nadia is gonna look like.
I know.
I'm just like, oh my God, like when is it happening? And so yeah, there's definitely that. I think I also just like, I mean, I also just kind of want to like, I'll be interested to see like how they would approach like maybe like if they would develop a relationship between Alina and Botkin, just because we saw in the show that there's a lot of like negativity associated with her being half Shu, but maybe like finding camaraderie in one, like we're fixing her relationship with Zoya, so like as like two mixed race people, and also just like seeing like maybe like she can be fully Rothkin, but also like see the good in what it is like to be like at least part Shu, right? Like maybe like learning from Botkin. So that's something that I would really look forward to in the next season as well. And Nikolai, of course, like yeah.
Well, they're going to be expanding the universe a lot from what we have seen already. So, I mean, that will be exciting because I think we get to see a little bit of Shu culture in books, but yeah, I think with a TV show, you might end up having to show a little bit more in order to, like, if you're going to have these characters from this background. I mean, you don't have to, but it would be nice if we could see more of, like, where Toya and Tamar come from, and they could have more interactions with Alina of that sort, because there will be kind of like a culture disconnect, if that makes any sense, because it's different if you've been fully, like, raised in one culture versus if you've only, like, that's you have a part of that in you, but it's not something that you grow up with. And it would be interesting to see the kind of dynamics about like where Alina feels that she knows what's going on and where she feels like she doesn't, and then like it's something that they could all bond over potentially, which would be fun. I don't know if they're going to do it or not, but I don't know, because it's the way that they've done the show. It's very, very close to the books, but they've changed some little things. So spoiler potentially if anybody hasn't. So, but yeah. So, but if they do end up making more sun summoners at the end, I would really love it. If for some reason all of them ended up being Shu or half Shu kids to kind of like close the narrative circle, that would be pretty cool. They're not going to do it, but it would be really cool.
It would be cool just to like show that, like, again, like these are Rovkin people, like no matter how they look, like they are Rovkin, they are sun summoners, they are Rovkin. Yeah.
In other words, they should hire us.
Yes. So Eric and Leigh, if you're watching, this is our audition tape for random background Grisha number 4 on the. But if they do hire any of us, they should probably hire Sophia or some other people that can, like, any cosplayers, there's got to be some actors in the fandom, but that can do all of the things, because I could probably like sit in a scene and pretend to talk to someone, but if they had me doing something complicated, I don't know how that would go. Like, they'd be like, all right, you gotta take 10 steps and your mark's on your left, and I'd be like, whose mark? I'm like, what? Oh, damn! I don't know, but we'll see. That would be pretty cool. Like, I don't care. Like, it would be really fun to be on the set. Like, I will be that person that is not even on screen, just catches Uman's eyeball whenever it gets thrown off into the green screen. But like, I don't care. That would be fun. Before we go, I would like to ask if you have any current projects that you're working on that you're really excited about.
For me, I'm still like finishing up my Grisha cover redesigns. So like I'll be finishing up Alina on the Ruin and Rising cover soon, and hopefully I'll have like the back covers designed quickly as well. It's not too much of a spoiler, but like it'll be like a dude on each of the backs, because like it just so happens there's 3 dudes and there's 3 books. I'm just like, okay, that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, and so yeah, that's my current project there, and then everything else is just up in the air. Maybe more Dark Lena along the way. Who knows?
Your covers are really, really beautiful.
Do more Dark Lena. I'm I'm gonna keep an eye out for it.
yes, that's what we're here for.
Yes. I think right now, I think there's maybe 2-ish like projects. I started writing like a script for like a voiceover that I want to do for one of for like a YouTube video because I'm trying to make more YouTube videos nowadays. I just finished We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal and I really, really liked it. So I was thinking about doing sort of like a video review and also maybe a photo shoot for it. I'm still thinking about it because I really want to. I think I might want to read the sequel before I do it though. So that's kind of up in the air. And then a costume designer that I really, really like, she reached out to me a few months ago and she wanted to make me a kefta. So that's been in the works for a little bit. I haven't like really announced that to my Instagram because it was still very much like in the works, in the process. But she's done a really good job so far and I am very excited for it. Her name is Kirby Moore and she makes these like beautiful dresses and stuff. It's crazy. It's insane. I'm still kind of in shock that she wanted to reach out to me. But yeah, I don't know if I can show any of the like photos of it so far because I don't know if she's like afraid of getting her like pattern stolen or something like that. But yeah, very excited for it. She offered to make me a black one because I was talking about how it'd be really sick to have like a black kefta, but we went with the blue and the yellow one as seen in the show. So yeah.
That is okay. Yeah, you definitely should take lots of pictures whenever you get that because
I'm looking forward to seeing
so
those
cool.
shots. Yes.
And also, I've heard really good things about that book series. Did you like it? What did you think?
I did. So basically We Hunt the Flame is about like I'm just gonna plug the book here. So we
No, go ahead. It's fine.
It's basically like a fantasy with like enemies to lovers and it's about this girl who has to disguise herself as a man. She goes by the alias the Hunter. Think of like Mulan, but like ancient Arabia influences. It's super, super cool. But yeah. There's like a scene where like someone holds a knife to their throat. It's amazing. So I definitely recommend it.
Because one of the girls that I follow does a lot of she reads a lot of Asian influenced fantasy and so she recommended that one and so I have like my Goodreads has exploded in the past month or so, but she did that one. And then have you read Spin the Dawn?
I have not, but I want to.
Okay. Good. That one is also very good if you like, because there's a little bit of Mulan in there too. So also girl disguised as boy going off to do awesome things. So, and there's also very snarky love interest. It was kind of funny because I had to remind myself while I was reading it that it was YA because at first like she has a little bit of a crush on the Emperor and I was like, is there gonna be something that goes on here? And then I was like, no, wait, it's YA. Of course she's going to go for the guy with the dark hair that is snarky and then has a good jawline. So
no, but then as you're reading, it's like, oh, thank gosh, I didn't go with the Emperor.
I know, like really for sure. But it was like, yeah, she made a much better choice. But yeah, if you like the snarky, dark, morally gray, yeah, like there's another one to add to your list of fictional crushes.
That just went to the top of my TBR. Like mentally just put it up there.
So to finish up, we're going to do a lightning round of silly questions just for fun. So, okay, if you could be a Grisha, what small science would you practice?
Yeah, what was it? A healer? Just because like, I want to be able to like, well, you can't heal yourself. Damn, just kidding. I'm not that selfless right now. Okay, you know what? Maybe a sun summoner so I can read at all times of the day.
That was a good answer.
Oh, yes. That's such a cool answer. I was gonna say it's in between also sun summoner, but also maybe like a squaller because I don't know. I feel like wind is really cool, but also probably Heartrender because I want to be friends with Nina and Nina's really cool.
Yeah, I think my heart starts sun summoner because of I love Alina, but I think my personality is actually closer to some type of corporality. But actually, if you were a sun summoner, Sophia, that might be useful to your work because you can manipulate the light for your photos.
Imagine. How'd you get that special effect? I don't know.
It's called the light, man,
Okay, and what is your favorite food?
Beef curry. Yes. It's like nice comfort food. Yes.
This isn't food, this is a drink. I had bubble tea like 6 times in the last month. That's the first thing that came to mind. Yeah, my brother's home from college, so we've been going on like boba runs every other day.
Okay, you better make a meme then of Alina with some
Yeah.
bubble tea. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a farmer until I learned exactly how much work goes into like tending to these animals that I thought were really cute when they're these cute little plastic figurines. Yeah, no, it's not like that.
Oh man. I actually wanted to be a tennis player. I played tennis really religiously as a kid. Kind of burned out of that, like gifted kid burnout in elementary school. That was me, but
Mhm.
like middle school. So burned out of that. But now I'm a little bit sad my parents didn't force me into child acting. But oh well, I guess that I'll work with this, I guess.
You can
It's
still do
never
it.
too late to get started.
True.
What is something silly that you can't do well? I can't open jars very well.
I can't write well. My handwriting is really ugly. Like everyone's like, oh, but you draw, you should be good at handwriting. I'm like, no, it's like you're using different muscles when you're doing it, like it's completely different. So yeah, my chicken scratch. Yeah.
Oh man. What was I gonna say? Oh my God, I just forgot. Oh, I can't draw. I really wish I could draw. I can't draw. And people are like, Sophia, can we see some of your like draft sketches for your thing? I'm like, draft sketches? Like, do you just assume I could draw? Like, there's a reason I do Photoshop art because you're working with things that already exist. It's not like just creating something. I'm not that talented. Not as talented as like the beautiful line work, but no, like I can't even do like, I don't know. I can't even sketch out my designs before I want them. It's all just collages, whether I want them to be or not, in the end.
Have any of you seen overly sarcastic productions on YouTube? They do a lot of they do cartoons to narrate all of their videos. So it's like a voiceover while they're describing or they're summing up some type of classic that you have to read in school, but it has cartoons and the cartoons are all funny. So one of these days, if you want to do any of your voiceovers for Shadow and Bone things, as like Julia or I could do like little cartoons for you.
Collaboration.
And if you want, you can do one as well, so that way we can show.
Okay.
Like this is how it was supposed to go. And last one, who would win in a fight, Nikolai or Milo?
Milo, because you think anyone can actually like hurt Milo? You think like with a conscience? Like
No, probably not.
Milo,
No.
probably.
And then Milo would take advantage of your weakness.
Nikolai would kill himself before he killed an animal.
Yeah, I think he would probably just look and turn into a puddle of mush, and Zoya would just be over there like,
what are you doing?
Okay, well, thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a good evening.
Oh, of course, this was super fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having all of us. Yes.
All right.